Hey everybody. All right, so I'm going to keep encouraging you to read poems more than once. This poem, Playground Elegy by Clint Smith, is one of my favorites. Hopefully you've already read it once or twice. Hopefully you've went and watched the video, which added some really cool imagery to the reading of the poem. I want to point out a couple things that I noticed in the poem, ask you a couple questions as I go, and then you're going to go into Schoology and answer kind of an overall question about the poem. And then we'll talk about the analysis of the poem tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to work with this poem for a couple of days. All right, so the first thing I noticed is the title, Playground Elegy. And in Elegy, I put a note right for you over here, is a serious reflection, usually a mourning for the dead. And I want you to think about, why is that ironic? Remember, ironic means unexpected, that this word, elegy, would be paired with the word playground. Why is that something that I wouldn't expect to see? And so when I do see it, it's kind of like, that must be on purpose, and I probably should think about it. The other thing I want you to notice about the poem is that it is structured really in a really interesting way. I don't know if you notice the physical structure of the poem, but I want you to think about that as you go into thinking about the overall meaning that Clint Smith was trying to create. Just look at the way that it's this is atypical, right? And I think you probably now are noticing it and hopefully figuring out why he may have done that. The first time I slid down my slide, my mother told me to hold my hands towards the sky, something about gravity, weight distribution, and feeling the air ripple through your fingers. I see this word gravity, and I know that gravity is an unstoppable force, and it's always pulling us down back towards the earth. All right? I reached the bottom, smile consuming half my face, hands still in the air because I didn't want to stop. Ever since, this defiance of gravity has always been synonymous with feeling alive. All right, so now he's saying, talking about raising his hands is equal to the defiance of gravity. So taking this unstoppable force and saying, no, I'm going to defy it. I'm going to go against it. And that going against made him feel alive. When I read of the new child, his body strewn across the street, a casket of bones and concrete, I wonder how many times he slid down the slide, how many times he defied gravity to answer a question in class. Did he raise his hands for all of them? Does my mother regret this, that she raised a black boy growing up to think that raised hands made me feel more alive, that raised hands meant I was alive, that raised hands meant I would live? I notice a turn in the poem right here when I read of the new child. I would call that a shift. Now I think the poem shifts in tone. So up here, the poem feels, I would put an attitude word on it, one word on it. I mean, there are different words you could use to describe it, but it feels one way. And then the second half of the poem, or at least this part right here, feels a different way. And I want you to think about what different way it feels. And then ultimately you have to think about how you know that. Like, what text points you towards feeling that way. All right. So that's the main thing I want you to think about right now, is reading through the poem. It feels one way up here, and then it feels a different way down here. And then ultimately, I think it feels a third way too. So think about those different ways that it feels and why. And then now that we've had our little discussion, I want you to go into Schoology, and I created a discussion board. I want you to answer the discussion question and comment on at least one of your classmates' comments. Okay?